who has been accused by some of her colleagues for dishing out the said inducement. The lawmaker would come out on Monday in a bid to clear her name.
How can I bribe a honorable member with 10,000 shillings, honestly? What is 10,000 shillings? 10,000 shillings cannot even buy a lunch for a honorable member. Yeah? And I want to challenge Hon.Didmus Baraza. If indeed I bribed him, or I bribed in that matter 349 members of parliament, whose interest was I working for? Nobody has sent me. Nobody gave me money to go and bribe a honorable member.
She says all she did was lobby fellow legislators to shoot down the report because it was allegedly lacking in credibility.
I personally, I felt this report was shoddy and was not credible. Reason being, the committee were told to tell us who are the sugar barons. And in the report, they were supposed to tell us whether the sugar that is in the shells is fit for human consumption. Instead, they brought a report that does not meet actually the criteria for this house. What they brought, they decided to cover up the sugar barons.
But the lawmaker is not alone in condemnation of the report, as Minority Leader of the National Assembly, John Mbadi, is adamant the report failed to answer fundamental questions which the committee was mandated to address.
As John Mbadi, even if you bring that report again, with its pages from page 1 up to 62, the ones that I read, I would still not support that report. I am an experienced legislator. I know how committee reports are written, and I cannot pass a report that is useless.
Amid the confusion on how well the saga on toxic sugar can be resolved, senators hold the view that they can do a better job.
If anyone can take 10,000 shillings to tilt a report whose content has implications on the health and livelihoods of millions of Kenyans, then as a nation, then we are doomed.
Kitui Senator Enoch Wambua says the senators demonstrated independence and level-headedness that is crucial in unearthing the truth.
All is not lost. Senate, I'm very sure, if Senate takes up this matter, I strongly believe that we will get value, not just for money, but value for the livelihoods of Kenyans. Remember, Senate as shown by example. In the last two committees, one, the ad hoc committee on Solai, it has come out very, very strongly and very, very clearly amidst allegations of attempts of bribery, including serious monies, not 10,000 shillings. And senators have said, no. It's not about money, it's about our nation.
Keen observers seem to agree that indeed, under present circumstances, the Senate can be called in to remedy the situation.
Yes, the Senate can redeem our legislature by stepping in, and there seems to be some sense of sobriety in the Senate, but they really also need to seize the occasion and run with the ball.
Mogaka believes that the president may be forced to intervene should the issue prove a hard nut to crack.
The ball stops at the executive because the executive has sufficient mechanisms of investigating the efficacy of the allegation of contaminated products in this country. There are sufficient bodies in this country that can step in and provide a solution, a semblance of a solution on which way forward.
Eric Biegon reporting for Channel 1 News.
Well, that is the controversy surrounding what happened last week in Parliament. Members of Parliament rejecting a report of a joint committee that was looking into allegations of contaminated sugar getting into our country. And of course, there are members of Parliament denying that indeed there was bribery that took place in order for them to reject that particular report. But now joining me in studio is a member of Parliament for Kimilili, that is Hon.Didmus Baraza. Of course, he's one of the members of Parliament who has alleged that indeed indeed money exchanged hands for this particular report to be rejected. And he will be giving us more insight on what really transpired on the floor of the House. But before we do that, let's just quickly take a look at what some of the members of Parliament said, starting with the chairperson of that particular committee, Kanini Kega, who is the member of Parliament for Kieni. What did they say as regards the decision by members of Parliament to throw out that particular report?
Kwamba kuna mawaziri ambao walikuwa wamelegeza kamba, lakini wabunge kwa sababu ambazo hazieleweki, wakiwa wameongozwa na kiongozi wa wengi Hon.Dan na kiongozi wa wachache John Badi, wakatupilia ripoti hiyo bali, wakikosa kuzingatia kwamba sisi kama wabunge tumechaguliwa ili tulinde wananchi.
Kweli kama kuna madai na shutuma mesiona ziko ndani ya magazeti kwamba kuna watu walikula mlungula ama walionwa tofauti kwa hii sakata ya mambo ya sukari, heshima ya bunge ni muhimu.
It was quite a big shame kuona maneno yakiandikwa kwenye gazeti kwamba wabunge wanapewa pesa kidogo tu. Kidogo sana.
Nataka niambie my colleagues kwamba mulitulete down, muliharibu ripoti ambayo ilikuwa mzuri, na vile nimeona kwa gazeti speaker akisema anataka kuinvite EACC na office of the DCI pamoja na DPP wacha wakuja wachunguze.
Well, there you have it, Mheshimiwa. Your immediate reaction to, what we have just seen on TV, the reaction by MPs as regards the decision that was taken by Parliament rejecting the sugar report in its entirety.
It was unfortunate, and I think the forces of impunity and corruption and those people who are traded in sugar took over Parliament. Because, and I want to repeat what I've been saying before, the Honorable Fatuma Gedi was one of the people who were bribing members of Parliament to reject the amendments by the Honorable Gladys Wanga and also to throw away the whole report in totality.
She was today on record saying that she did not bribe anyone, she was merely lobbying, which the law allows her to lobby. Even
Swazuri, when he was taken to court today, he pleaded not guilty to the charges that were leveled against him. A few days ago, Dr. Evans Kidero also pleaded not guilty to the charges leveled against him. Really, this is just being defensive, and myself, I confirmed that she was moving around within the chamber.
Do you have evidence to support what you're saying?
I have the evidence. I'm a member of Parliament. I'm not a madman. I have no interest in running against her in Wajir. Why would I want to soil her name for whatever no reasons? When I say something, I am a member of Parliament for Kimilili constituency. And when I say something with a tangible evidence. If you ask Major Waluke, the member of Parliament for Sirisha, he will collaborate. When we ask member of Parliament for Matungu, he will collaborate. This is things which we know.
In the event that the DCI and the DPP come and investigate these particular allegations, are you willing to testify that you
I am willing to appear before anybody in this country to give the evidence, and I tell you even for free, Parliament is always, Parliament conducts its business in camera. You only need to play back the cameras, and you will see her dishing out the money. Maybe she can confirm whether the money she was giving out, was it for Harambe or for what purposes. But I can tell you without blinking an eye that she participated in this vice, and she owed the Kenyan woman an apology, because women are sacred. Women never participate in these things called corruption.
Are you saying that corruption has agenda?
Women are naturally, even when you look at the institutions that are headed by women, even countries that are headed by women, even countries, corruption index is very low. I'm saying women, the way women are wired, they're very honest. They're more honest than us men,
So you're saying she's the only member of Parliament who was dishing out money. Who was receiving this money?
She gave out a number of money to a number of people. Of course, I was not concerned about the people she was giving. I only got concerned when she approached to give me that 10,000 shillings. That's when I asked her, what's the point of you giving me the money, these 10,000 shillings? And what she told me that we are throwing out the report. I told her, you are out of your senses and completely out of order. I pressed an intervention button so that I can raise on a point of order and notify the speaker of what was going on behind his back. But unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to be able to inform Parliament of what was going around.
The basis at which members of Parliament threw out this particular report, would you say then it was entirely because of the money that they received, or there were particular issues that they raised as regards how that report was written?
Absolutely. And the leader of minority is not being sincere. Honorable Hon.Didmus is not being sincere. He is in that house to represent the interests of Kenyans. If the report was shoddy, he had all the tools to suggest amendments and better the report. That's why when the report was tabled, we never debated it at that time and approved it. The reason why the debate was deferred until some time, it was for the members to go through that report, abreast themselves with the report, and if there are some amendments that they feel are important to improve the report, then that was, we were given an opportunity. People like Honorable Gladys Wanga, Honorable Godfrey Otsosi, they came up with amendments, but those people had been bribed. They didn't even want to hear anything. They shut down all the two amendments. I can doubt about the amendments by Honorable Gladys Wanga, because the Honorable Gladys Wanga had suggested to tighten the recommendations, actually, to make those people who are involved accountable. You know,
that is the cabinet, the three cabinet secretaries.
The two cabinet secretaries and the current ambassador of Kenya in India. You see, but the amendments by Godfrey Otsosi, they were basically saying we take stock of the tons of sugar that are in this country for the purposes of recording that sugar, so that we get that sugar out of the market. Which to me, it was one of the best amendments. Because if we are saying that this sugar is loaded with the mercury, copper, and lead, then we need to get this sugar out of the shelves.
But based on the mood of the House on that particular day, didn't you see the possibility that perhaps the way members of Parliament were making their arguments, that it was likely that that entire report would be thrown out, and perhaps look for a way to be able to sober up the House?
If you can go back and check, the people who are opposing these reports are the ones who are being given opportunities, most of them to debate against that report. And I can even say that that report was designed to fail. They had planned themselves very well, and those who opposed the report, they were opposing it not because it was a bad report, but because it was incriminating the three cabinet secretaries. And they kept on arguing that you cannot condemn a person unheard. They are giving an example of Willie Bett, who has never appeared before the committee. But to me, that one is not important. But because they ought to have moved amendments to expurge the names of the cabinet secretaries. And I approve the report. The report had other very good recommendations.
Based on what you're saying, you're sort of saying like there was a conspiracy, because you're saying that the people who were given an opportunity to speak were those who were opposing the report. Of course, the speaker, from his position, he had no way of knowing whether you were going to support or oppose that particular report.
It's only himself who cannot know. These are human beings. They may have sat somewhere, did a meeting and decided who should do ABCD, who should do ABCD, because at one point, the Honorable Amos Kumunya rose and said that challenged the amendments by Honorable Gladys Wanga, of which the Speaker allowed them to continue. But if you look at the way the mood of the House, these people had planned themselves. You know, when this matter first came up in Parliament, the mood of the House was very passionate, including the leader of majority, Eden Duale. He tabled some names of the people who are importing sugar. So then you wonder what had changed prior to when we were debating this report. This is completely clear that money had exchanged hands.
Honorable Duale on that particular day pointed out that a joint, the joint committee report had about at least 30 members of parliament in that particular committee. And one of the things that he said was there was a lot of vested interest and a lot of political interests that made coming up with that report a very difficult thing. Do you think there was really a lot of political interest, and the sugar barons, like you said, are the ones who were the winners in this particular discussion?
Absolutely. There were a lot of political interferences and corruption, money exchanging hands with a view of compromising the report, and so that we can have a status quo, that these sugar barons continue to bring in sugar more than what Kenya what is required to meet the deficit, which is about 100,000 metric tons. And I think today, as we speak, there are some people who have been making noise, portraying themselves as the people who respect the rule of law, as the people who always put the interests of the Kenyan people ahead of them. But what we saw is that the enemies of the cane farmers were clearly known. Why would it be that you come from a region that doesn't even know, that doesn't plant cane, but we are appearing to be knowing everything? The economy of some, I'm even told that in where the leader of minority comes from, most of his voters are fishermen. So, I mean, he had no...
But he is a representative of the people. Are you saying that his work is not to also oversight?
He is a representative of the people, but on that very day, he never represented people. He represented the sugar cartels.
Okay, he's not here to defend himself, so I don't want to belabor that point. But looking at what happened in Parliament, you shooting down this entire report, what does it mean for the Kenyan, for Wanjiko down there, who gave you this mandate, you spent money on it, and now you're saying that, we cannot trust the members of parliament to deliver a report that is credible?
I want to tell the sugarcane farmers that the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Finance, they have no business in improving their lives. They killed their very good report, and they seem not to care about the tribulation that they go through them. The economy of the sugar belt that runs from Transmara to Trans Nzoia was killed because we already have thousands of tons of sugar in the Kenyan market. And why would you want to license some people to import sugar more sugar than that can take this country for the next 3 years? Then you claim that Kenya is that agriculture is the backbone of this country, but you are licensing other people to import sugar to bring it into this country. Let me give you an example. CS Rotich had issued a number of gazette notices, not only for sugar. The gazette notice, for example, for milk powder was clear with the quantities. But the gazette notice for sugar, it was a blank check, an open check. Those people imported more sugar than this country will require for the next 3 years. Because ideally, the reason why cabinet approves resolve that we allow people to import sugar is if the current quantity the local millers are producing is not enough to meet the demands of the Kenya for 1 year. For example, at that time, it was assumed that the local millers were able to produce between 600 and 700,000 metric tons. But in this country, we require 900,000 metric tons. So what was to be imported was slightly above 380,000 metric tons. So when you are issuing a gazette notice, you must specify the quantities, 380 metric tons. So if you are licensing company A to produce 100 tons, company B 200 tons, company C 600 tons, you do that to ensure that the cumulative quantity that these companies are importing should not be more than 380,000 metric tons. But this guy issued a gazette notice that didn't have the quantities, so people went on an importation spree.
But Mheshimiwa, the issue is not, importation of excess sugar. It's importation of contaminated sugar. I mean, he had no way of knowing that. That was not within his domain. He just gave a directive, we need to bring in more sugar, but whose responsibility was it to check whether the sugar that is coming into the country is fit for human consumption?
One, when you issue the Gazette notice, this sugar was to be imported from COMESA countries, not from countries that are outside COMESA. But without specifications, sugar was coming from Brazil, from different parts of the world. And you see, this Brazilian sugar, it's sugar that must be refined. It's not sugar that you bring and you use. You get my point? And it's the responsibility of government to ensure that whatever is on the shelves for the Kenyans is fit for human consumption. It's clear from the tests that were done randomly. Sugar from Bungoma had mercury. Sugar from Kiambu, from Isili, had mercury. And it's again the responsibility of the Kenya Bureau of Standards to ensure that whatever is coming into this country is fit for human consumption.
So was KBC indicted in this particular report?
KBC was not indicted, but the person who was indicted was the Minister for Trade. But of course, you understand that a few weeks ago, the managing director for KBC is in court. He was arrested and charged in court. The matter is ongoing. I don't want to belabor too much on it. But what we were saying in the report that the minister who oversees KBC, the minister whose responsibility is designing policies that which KBC now enforces, is Adan Mohammed. So that's why the report had said that I should be investigated on his involvement.
So in terms of procedure, the Kenyan person had, hoped that Parliament, as the representative of the people, would come up with a report that will guide this discussion going forward. This report was thrown out in its entirety. So now, in terms of procedure, what next? Where does it leave us? Because we paid money for you to sit and come up, with this particular report. But this report, obviously, now we are saying is null and void.
Parliament failed to properly investigate these matters. We failed to give Kenyans answers as to whether this sugar that we are buying on a daily basis is fit for human consumption or not. We failed to tell Kenyans who is to blame in terms of this sugar that has flooded our Kenyan market. We completely failed. And we only have one hope, and the hope is the president. The president was elected by the popular vote by the Kenyans. The president now must take that responsibility, either by forming a kind of, to set up, a committee that will completely interrogate and investigate this matter. And also the DCI and the DPP, they should go ahead and arraign the people who are involved in court, because the people who authorized, who gave out the blank check for sugar to be imported are known. The people who stamped the sugar at the port of entry that is fit for human consumptions are known. It's not a problem.
Okay. The senators have today said that they are willing to take up this particular matter because their feeling is that the National Assembly got so mixed up in the politics around the sugar that they did not give an objective report. What would be your take? Has the National Assembly failed, therefore the senators should step in?
In fact, this matter ought to have been taken over by the Senate because agriculture is a devolved function. So they are completely in order to investigate this matter, but that notwithstanding, the president must also join the fray and set up some kind of committee, some commission, to completely investigate this matter.
How many commissions do we need to form? How many committees need to sit before we know whether this sugar is good, the sugar that we are seeing on the shelf is good for consumption or not? Because this is obviously appearing now like some sort of circus. Everybody wants to investigate, but at the end of the day, we are not getting anything conclusive. The Kenyan doesn't know whether the sugar is good or not.
Parliament did a very good job in terms of banning the midnight oil and coming up with a report. If you read the committee proceedings, the committee proceedings flows very well. It's only at the time of drafting the final report that things began to go haywire. The final report was doctored. But if you read the committee proceedings, you know, the parliamentary committee proceedings are the same way like you know, a high court ruling. When a judge delivers a ruling on a matter, he depends on the submissions by counsels. He depends on the witnesses, the way the witnesses were giving their testimonies. So when you follow the proceedings of the committee, you will really know that they did a very good work. They had all the facts. They only went wrong in drafting the final recommendations, which I believe the recommendations were doctored. They were watered down. The issue of the ministers taking responsibility didn't come out clearly. That's why we supported the amendments by the Honorable Gladys Wanga to make them completely responsible. But the argument of those who are opposed to it were saying that we cannot you know, crucify people without giving them an opportunity to defend themselves. And if you follow the debate by Honorable Duale and Honorable Mbadi, there is no single statement that they made that favored the cane farmers. All the statements that they were making, they were only favoring the, you know, the CSS who were mentioned, and not even the farmers. I will have I would expect them to have quickly gone through the report, and before the report was, you know, we went to Parliament to debate the report, they could at least try to suggest some amendments. And I want to tell them that when you are the leader of majority, you don't just lead to nowhere. You go to lead people. You go to lead people, even in terms of telling them this is how we can improve on this report. I mean,
but did the committee, you know, stick to its terms of reference? Because that is one issue that kept coming on the floor of the House, that the terms of reference that they were expected to address themselves to, they did not. And yet, you know, you're saying that if we follow the committee proceedings, then perhaps we can get something out of this. But if it's not a legal document, then our hands.
No, you see, let me tell you, Madam. If you have a report from a government chemist that is saying the sugar that was tested in Bungoma had mercury, the sugar that was tested in Kiambu and Isili had mercury, this tells you that the sugar that is for the market is not safe. So all those are contained in the report, but they were not in the recommendations. But we could easily sneak them into the recommendations by a way of an amendment. So that's why I want to disagree with the Honorable Mbadi and the Honorable Duale, that they ought to have used the experience in understanding the standing orders of Parliament to make this document better.
But now the fact that the document was thrown out, it means these your sentiments will never feature anywhere.
It never feature anywhere. That report is dead. It was returned to the sender. We will never debate it again. It's a dead matter. Parliament will never engage itself again on this matter of sugar unless in future if fresh matters comes up. But on this one is water under bridge.
I'm informed our time is over, but just listening to, you know, what you're saying, the fact that, you know, you're almost saying that members of Parliament were actually involved in taking bribes. Don't you think then this then paints the institution of Parliament as one that perhaps Kenyans cannot trust?
I want to agree with you, and we really have got to redeem ourselves. How we will do it, I don't know. Because I saw what I have never seen outside Parliament and within the chambers of Parliament. The members of Parliament can agree to be compromised by between 10,000 shillings. You know, there were various groups of people that were bribing. I was told we had a group of people that was bribing on behalf of to save CS Rotich. We have another group led by Fatma Gedi. They were bribing on behalf of Aden Mohammed. So the issues of ethnic, you know, ethnicity came in. That
who told you? Because you're saying you were told and then you're saying you saw.
Of course, what I saw was inside the Parliament when someone tried to bribe me. But again, you see, I was told by members of Parliament that this was just an annex of whatever was happening. That even in prayer before some other members of Parliament were seen with some list People were picking brown envelopes, taking some names in the cafeteria. I was not in the cafeteria. Me, I was inside Parliament. I was there. I went to Parliament about 2:10, and I slotted in my card because I had a lot of interest. And you see, when you want to speak in Parliament, you must be, chances are given on first come, first basis. So I went in and put in my card, hoping that I would be the first person to contribute, because I really wanted to support the amendments by Honorable Gladys Wanga.
All right, Mheshimiwa, our time is up, but I just want you to look straight into that camera and talk to Kenyans, especially the sugar farmer who is affected by this. What would be the best course of recourse based on where we are now?
I want to tell the sugarcane farmers that this time around, going forward, we are not just going to vote for people blindly. We are going to vote for people who have our interests at heart, because there is no any other business that we do that enables us to put food on the table apart from cane farming. Our goal is cane farming, and going forward, we are going to vote for people who have our interests at heart. Because if you cannot support this kind of a report that was good for farmers, that would have prevented the very many, the other senior government officers who could be planning to bring in sugar, and you go against what the report had suggested, you throw it out, then it means you have you do not have our interests at heart. And not going forward, we are going to vote wisely.
All right. Thank you, Mheshimiwa. I hope your constituents are listening, and Kenyans at large. Of course, we have been discussing the events that took place in Parliament last week. Members of Parliament throwing out the report of the Joint Committee on Trade and Agriculture regarding the contaminated sugar in the market. And of course, Member of Parliament for Kimilili, Hon.Didmus Baraza, pointing out that indeed money exchanged hands for that particular report to be thrown out, and he is willing to testify in the event that it comes.